is to build the building like any other business would do. It'll probably take several years. So yes, we'll have to get a loan and we'll have to build the building if that's required. If they can show that they can do it if they can run a profitable business, we'll get a loan and then we'll show what the payback is from the profits and pay us back. And then when they're done paying us back, in however many years that takes, we'll start pumping that money back into the coffers of Hidden Valley Lake. And now we'll start having money to go into the reserve fund for the lake, which you may be aware, you probably are aware, not one red cent, zero, of our money is going into the reserve fund to deal with the lake dredging issue, which is going to come up and will be very expensive. Nothing. Well, we're going to turn that around. We're going to start putting money into that reserve fund. And another thing I would like to do, and I haven't really discussed this with much of anybody yet, so this is the first time you're probably going to hear this, I would like to build sidewalks on our main thoroughfares. We can't put it everywhere, but on our main thoroughfares, so that we don't see mothers walking down the street pushing a stroller and kids walking down the street. That's ridiculous for as many years we're here. We can't afford to do that now. There's too much money being spent for other things, and we're not spending it for ourselves, and I want to change that. And the only way we're going to get that money is one of two ways. We're either going to raise our assessments, and I'm 100% against that. That won't happen as long as I'm on the board. If I could have anything to say about it. Of course, I'm just one person, and it'll be my vote, but I will promise you I will vote against it if it ever comes up for the full term I'm on the board. Or we'll take it out of the profit now that we're starting to make from the food and beverage, as they like to call it. Nice euphemism, food and beverage amenity, yeah, right. But from the profit. Okay, so that's where I'm standing on that. My second priority, and I'm going to have to cut this down because I only have 5 minutes. My second priority is, you're probably aware that the golf operation is another amenity that we pay for heavily. By that I mean $600,000 a year negative subsidy from your assessments goes to keep the golf course running. Period. We can't totally stop that without stopping the golf course, and you have to I keep in my mind, we are not a golfing community. We are a community that has a golf course. And we will probably continue to have a golf course into the future. Whether it has to be the 18-hole golf course we have now or something else is what is to be decided. But I am going to press hard in years 2 and 3 to cut that $600,000 subsidy down by half. We should not have to pay more than $300,000 of our hard-earned money to keep that golf course running. And I'm sure they can come up with a business plan and figure out how to do that, and I will see to it that that happens if I have my way about it. And we'll also do a professional business plan with professional people coming in to do the business plan for the restaurant and the bar also. We're not going to do it ourselves. They've spent over $100,000 on architecture that they should have never spent to begin with. They're going to have to spend some money on architecture, but first they should have put together a business plan, and they should have spent however much money is required to put the business plan together by professional people that do those things. And whether that cost $50,000 or $20,000, I don't know, but it should have been done. And then we could find out what kind of business, what kind of building we need to have that is sized to that profitability, to that business. So that's my 2 goals: first year goal and second and third year goal. And now I just want to say, I want to set some expectations. I'm already over time, but I want to set some expectations. This is going to be very difficult, people. If Steve and I are elected, would be a best case scenario. All right? So we're going to be 5-2 against us for anything that we say. And any motions that we bring up to the rest of the board, any proposals that we have, if we can get them to even put them in a board meeting, and they will probably vote down. But if we can get elected, and one of us puts a motion up and gets a proposal, and the other one seconds it, a couple of things are going to happen. One, they will probably have to discuss it, because right now they won't. And two, they will for sure have to vote on it. And of course, they'll probably vote no. But we're going to have them on record voting no. And that's very important. And I'm going to be like a terrier on a pant leg. I'm not going to sit back and let them just get away with it. I'm going to communicate, so everybody knows that these people are saying no. Thank you very much. I have campaign signs. I brought 10 of them. One of them is already spoken for. I'd like to have the other 9. If you'll come up to me, I'll write your name down with your address and phone number. I'll put them in the ground, so you don't have to fool around because the ground's hard. I'll come around and put them in the ground. You don't have to do anything, and I'll take them out. Campaign signs are here. After the meeting, just come up to me and say you'd like to put a sign out if you agree with what I have to say, and I would love to have you do that. Thank you very much.
So Herb has my vote. We at least have one. Hopefully we'll both be on the board together to keep each other company. So thank you, Herb. This is just a very brief overview of the controversial topic called survey. As some of you may know, I queried the board back first in July with the possibility of having a community survey and then using those results to guide the actions. And to date, as Michelle Wade actually has put up on Facebook, their reaction resembles the Moai and Easter Island, these stone statues. There's been no real response to survey or to the notion of referendum. So if I might have, on this slide, I just got something from our president a few days ago, and what they're doing here is showing a survey basically of anyone on their list. There are probably 10 or 20 million people on the list, and says, what matters to you? It has my name and my email address, and it asks, it basically has about 7 different priorities. I checked all of them. They're like immigration and healthcare and all that. And then they even put a slot for something else, and I put improving Hidden Valley Lake. So that's now with our president and his organization. So hopefully we'll do something about this. Okay?
Let us know
So
if
if
you
I
get
might have
that.
the next slide. So all the best organizations do this. We all get these requests for surveys. So it turns out the reason why we're getting all these surveys these days, particularly over the web, is it's cheap and it's easy to do. Cheap, you can do a comprehensive survey for a few $100s at most. And it's not that hard, and SurveyMonkey, and there are probably about 10 competitors, give you the tools to make it trivial to do. Most of the work is in designing what questions you want to ask. And then it basically formulates it in a way that's shown to get proven results and be valid scientifically. So there's no excuse anymore for an organization like HVLA, which presumably has the email addresses of most of the property owners, not to do this. So the question is, how can you get a high compliance rate? Next slide. Well, there's an old-fashioned way, it's called rebate. And what you do is you create a budget item in the budget going forward so that you get a $25 or whatever rebate on your assessment if you have filled out that year's comprehensive survey. So it's voluntary, but there's a financial incentive, and since we live in a hyper-capitalist society, I suspect that most people would take the option to fill out the survey, particularly since it's helping them, and reduce their goes a long way towards accomplishing Herb's objective to make sure the assessment does not grow. So that's really all I want to say about that. I think the next slide is for Mike. So Mike Rankin is going to now talk about a great idea he has, and one that essentially will allow us to go forward.
I'm Mike Rankin. I'm speaking tonight as a member of the association, not as a board member. So what you hear from me tonight represents me only. Okay. And what I'm doing here is demonstrating how I've broken the first rule where you always preview these things before you put them up to the audience. Okay, that's better. Okay, so this evening is supposed to be about democracy at Hidden Valley Lake. I've only been in the community for about 4 years, so I have seen much less than many of the folks in the audience, many of you all. But one thing I have seen is that, and that I have seen in other places as well. Next slide, please. Is that if you're interested in building democracy in the community, that communities communicate, and the ways in which that happens and the groups between which communications take place have a whole lot to do with the way the whole atmosphere of the community. And I want to what I've seen since I've been here. Next one, please. Here are a few past and present examples of vehicles for communications in our community. The top one is the masthead of the former monthly Hidden Valley Times-Star that was written by Kathy Josephs, primarily edited by Martha Webster, and appended once a month to the Middletown Times-Star, which is the middle masthead that you see, which is still alive, but really struggling, and which tries to cover the entire South County. And the third one is the South County News, which comes out of the Record B. But these are newspapers that have these are possible vehicles, but they really, with the exception of the first one, they really have a broader focus than this community. And I've thought for the last 4 years that boy, it would be really nice to have have something as you've all been sitting here this evening, listening to some opinions and talking with each other, and we can't spend all our time doing that, but it would sure be nice if we had a vehicle, if we had a way to do that on an ongoing basis, and a newspaper / electronic newsletter electronic newspaper, e-paper, if you will, is potentially a way to do that. And I just want to throw that idea out, that there certainly are some possible ways to do this. Next slide, please. Some of the ingredients of a let's see if we got any of these on here. Yeah, you want something to be timely, and for example, one of the limitations of the Hidden Valley Times Star was that it was a monthly thing, and things happen a little more quickly than monthly. It ought to have a mixture of factual reporting, events that go on, and opinions. And it ought to be an arena for all different kinds of opinions. What else did I say? You want to reach as much of the community as you can, and that means a combination. In my mind, that means a combination of print and electronic. There are electronic. There are a number of electronic, number of bulletin boards and forums and so on that are going on, trying to broaden the coverage to the largest possible group of the community. I think would be a good improvement on them. And ways to do that electronically, digitally, will reach a lot of people. But I know from experience in working with the Garden Club and working with a survey that the Commons Committee did, that there's a lot of people who who you can't reach electronically, and they got to be in the tent too. So it takes a multimedia, a multi-channel effort to try to include everybody. The last thing would be really nice would be if it is sustainable, because during a time like this, everybody's really. I think people are paying more attention to community politics now than they did a couple of years ago. Certainly a year ago, when there were 2 candidates and 2 seats, and it was a done deal as far as election goes. I think there's a little more attention being paid now. That'll relax at some point, and you need to have enough people involved and enough resources of all kinds involved that you can sustain this. So that's pretty much all I had to say. But I'm very interested in trying to contribute to something like this developing. There's no one person who's going to do this whole job, but I think, and if enough people will join forces to try to make this happen, I think the community would really benefit from it. That's all I've got.
Okay. So,
This is a little bit of an improvisatory structure. We're going to have a panel discussion, but we also want opportunity for participation from you, the audience. So maybe we should throw this first out to you to make any comments or questions, and then Herb and I and Michelle Wade and maybe Jack Worcester and maybe Ron Jones and Joy and Joy Byron have all agreed to be on a panel. I guess the one issue is that we don't really have microphones for everyone. Is there a mic over there? So one thing we could do is when we want to speak, we come up here. And maybe we should begin by asking if anyone has any questions or comments about any of the presentations or the issues raised by those presentations before the panel begins. Because remember, this community is only as strong as you all are. And we're here basically to discuss among ourselves. You didn't come here just to hear a few people talk. So we're really interested in airing a lot of ideas and going forward, a lot of ideas that probably a lot of us have not thought of before, and maybe would not have been thought of unless we discussed them in this type of town meeting. So